Hi. So I'm going to talk about Jung, typology, and MBTI. Just giving you a brief insight over what I learned and inferred from reading over this material. One of the main things that I got from reading Carl Jung and the psychological types of Volume 6, and going over his attitudes, functions, and of course the MBTI, is the duality of the brain. We are very so proud of our brain. As human beings, we take pride that we are the most supreme. Intelligent animal, and that's why we have progressed the theory of evolution as such. But at the same time, the duality of the brain is our biggest weakness. That is the reason why Jung was interested over this. Uh, uh, he was a psychologist anyways, and there, by understanding his patients, he tried to understand the neurosis of his patients, and from that got he proposed this, the attitudes and functions. And so the thing is that, see, the dualities exist all around us. We have so in the nature we have sun and moon, we have night and day, we have heat and cold, we have winters, we have summer season. I mean, this duality exists in nature itself. And somehow our brain also understands this duality. It functions as that. It's like a CPU, it's like a processor which understands only 0 or 1. And that is how our brain is. Of course, I mean, there are a lot of other things, but the main function of the brain, if you think about it, is to make a decision. You give a brain two choices, and the brain only has to decide. And sometimes what happens is, when we keep choosing, we keep making decisions in a particular manner, in a particular attitude. So by the time we reach our midlife, we are so used to that way of making decisions that sometimes maybe it doesn't suit us. And that is when the neurosis happens, or what we call the midlife crisis happens. And then we are forced to change our thinking pattern, our decision making pattern, and this. So and why do we do this? The brain does this because it is suitable. Like, if suppose someone is introverted because they like doing that, and because they keep doing that again and again, maybe they did not get a chance to explore their extrovertedness. And so it becomes a choice. And that is how. And so this constant choice over one particular form of function and attitude becomes a type, as we grow. So of course, so we have an inborn nature, which we are born with. But then we also keep making decisions, and which leads us to a type. So, but the point is that the duality, the duality exists everywhere. To as simple as we have the duality of subjective versus objective, or introversion versus extroversion. So we have our so Jung talks about libido. Libido is more than just energy. Libido is our perspective, towards life itself. And so some we some are introverted. It means that they are subjective. They have a very subjective view of themselves and the world. And then there are extroverted, in which they have an objective view of the world. And so that is the attitude. And then we have the functions, in which we have the rational functions, thinking and feeling. Again, if you're doing a lot of thinking, then you will not use feeling. And if you are doing a lot of and then we have the irrational function, in which if you do a lot of sensing, then you will not do intuition. So it's like, so. But what Carl Jung says is the process of individualization. He believed that the main goal of every individual in the society is to achieve individualization. Because so in his other volumes, in his other works, he has talked about the collective versus the individual. And of course we have the society, but at the same time we have to find our own individuality. And this process of individualization, that's quite some word. So this process of individualization uh, is the happens when we are a well balanced individual, when we are able to use our attitudes, which is introversion extroversion, properly, and when we are able to use all the four functions in a balanced manner. That is when we can achieve individualization, in which we are working within the society. We are not we are not removed from the society. Within the society, we are still finding our own unique uh, individual in the society, so like Carl Jung, he did not believe in the uh, um living a life like a Tibetan monk, who are totally focused as an introvert, because like he believed that you should be enjoying life, something like you can say how Lord Krishna from the in Mahabharata and Hindu religion, his character is like that. Lord Krishna, he's a yogi, and at the same time he's also, he's living in the world, and doing all his he's enjoying the world. So the process of individualization is something like that, and that is again, so if you want to escape the duality of the brain, the only way is individualization, and that can happen if we balance our brain. This is again something that I have read a lot in Hindu scriptures, in Bhagavad Gita. This duality of the mind, and to achieve this, again Carl Jung proposed a lot of things. I mean, one of which was, he talks about is that the brain needs to know that there is something higher than the ego. So the brain needs to believe that there is something higher than the ego, which Carl Jung said is the collective unconscious or the unconscious, and the Hindu religion and other religions call as the self, or the supreme self, the supreme one, in that manner. Another thing I want to talk about is typology. So again, uh, through typology, I mean, while I was understanding MBTI, I realized that it's nothing to be proud of. This is again, so like if you understand enneagram, in enneagram we have 9 types, and each of this type has a certain, is based on the kind of sin that they have. So it's a choices which leads us to become that type. Same way, astrology has like 12 zodiac signs, and many times we are proud of being a Leo or a Aquarius or Cancer, but actually, from the Vedic point of view, it's all about karma, and the kind of karma that probably you are supposed to do, which you did not do. So that makes up your astrological type, your zodiac. Similarly with MBTI, so MBTI was started by Myers-Briggs, as a way of determining a career, but uh, and again, many of us are very proud of it, that we are an INTP or ENTP or INFJ. But again, it's actually, you can look at it other way, that it is a shortcoming also, and it can become a greatest strength. So it can be our weakness, and at the same time it can be our strength also. It really depends on how we, really depends on a perspective of how we view our brain. I mean, it all comes down to what, like, do we identify ourselves with the brain, or do we think that there is something higher than the brain? It's all about perspective, when we are understanding typology here. The next thing, I just want to talk about MBTI for a few minutes. And so, uh, MBTI was a system, which I think, which the main function of the system was to identify your career and where you would be good for. So while Jung proposed around 8 cognitive functions, so there were 2 attitudes and 4 functions, so that makes like 8 types. And he had touched upon briefly that there is an auxiliary type or a shadow type, but he left it open. I mean, a lot of Jung's works is like that, and and so but MBTI, when it was proposed by Myers-Briggs, they emphasize a lot on the auxiliary function, and which I do believe is very important, because the first function which we have, which could be thinking, introverted thinking or extroverted thinking, that comes naturally to us. You could say that it is like inborn, which comes to us, and it is the second function which actually might be less developed, or overdeveloped or balanced. So the it is important to understand the auxiliary function, which for understanding the MBTI. And from the MBTI, you get the 16 types. uh, the 16 types, I see it as archetypes. So the 16 types, I see it as archetypes. uh, you know um, like you have the INFJ, INTP, ENTP, and over a period of time, I have seen that these archetypes are very well seen in cultures, and also lately in movies, in superhero movies. And so understanding these archetypes helps, or the 16 different types also helps you to understand many of the problems that people in the Western uh, countries are facing. I mean, in the sense, I would say even Eastern countries. I mean, the modern education system, or most of them are facing these problems. And the shadow side also, the which was proposed by Carl Jung, was expanded by, you can understand more by understanding MBTI. Currently in the MBTI community, there are a lot of different um, uh, propositions for these, and for the to explain the shadow side. So that's there. And of course, while going through all this MBTI, I also understood the hero journey. uh, by the way, I was interested in Joseph Campbell for a long time, and I read his book Hero with a Thousand Faces. But again, the hero's journey makes a lot more sense when you understand the this functioning of the brain. The because, yeah, the brain is the main component. uh, it, like I said, it can be your biggest strength as well as your biggest weakness. Finally, the age old question that humanity has always faced is free will versus destiny, and nature versus nature. So the like, do we have free will, or everything is on faith, or do we have a nature, inborn nature, or uh, can we improve our talents, can we nurture, and everyone can become anyone, if given the right this these are the kind of questions that all these typology systems, and of course the religions, they have tried to solve in the past. Just from the Jung's perspective, like I said, he talked about individualization, and he says that the main thing is that you are in a collective society. So of course, the collective society is important, but at the same time, you have to be a unique individual. And that process of individualization, which is also the hero's journey, as called by Joseph Campbell, is uh, is required for every person. That Jung believed that that is a supreme goal of every individual, is to find individualization, and that can happen only when the brain believes that there's a higher self. Or let it put this way, that there is something higher than the ego, there is something more than the ego. Because what we see in our dreams, what we see as demons, what we see as the shadow side, which we are not consciously doing, from that comes from somewhere, and through that he came up with the concept of collective unconscious, and you know the other things. Of course, every religion has its own viewpoint on this, to explain this concept of free will versus destiny, nature versus nurture. So in the end, I would just like to say that, yeah, MBTI is a good tool to find your own type, in the sense to really understand how your brain is functioning. But I would really say that not to get very attached to your own type, whether it is in astrology, zodiac signs, or MBTI or Enneagram, because what type you are could be your strength as well as your biggest weakness. So keep that in mind until we meet next time. Thank you.